Hi, hello, good morning. Yes, still morning. Check this out. So I'm actually gonna turn you around. We're gonna watch this.
Then talk about it because I have big feelings.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I actually don't know anyone who's like happy and has children at this age. I have like a 1-year-old, like 3-year-old, 4 and under, 5 and under. I literally have not met anyone who's happy, anyone who has like light in their eyes, anyone who has slept.
So folks are pretty mad.
As the mother of 3 children who had all 3 children within 5 years, which means I had an infant with a 5-year-old, and then there was one in the middle. It's exhausting when you're by yourself. And then I became a single parent working full time with those same 3 children when they were 9, 6, and 4. You're not happy. You have happy moments. And I think that's why people are kind of throwing a fit. And they want to, there's talk of Chappell getting canceled for this bullshit. Listen, Chappell gets to articulate an opinion. They have friends who obviously are in a constant state of complaint when they're with fellow adults. And I talk the ear off of other adults still because I'm predominantly at fucking home with my fucking children. And if you notice the bed is taller, it's because I got a bed frame. And the dog is on the floor. And my thick ass mattress has made that super tall. Anyways, not the point. So it is not easy. And now all of my kids are teenagers. My youngest is 13, oldest is 18. They had to become self-reliant. 1, thankfully, they had the personality to do so. But 2, it was evident that they would need to be self-reliant in those times when I was not home before they were home. So I didn't have a babysitter. For a year, I had somebody who needed help, so they lived with me in exchange to watching them. I did the most amount of traveling at that time. I was in a couple of steady relationships where they would watch the kids if I needed to go do something, like go to DC for 2 weeks for training. It is not fucking easy to do it by yourself, much less in a relationship. So the whole dynamic of dad comes home, mom checks out, and how some people think that that's not right or fair or whatever is because the mother needs a minute. Mother needs a minute. I feel guilty because there wasn't enough of me to give them the attention that they need. And now that I have slightly more time and they don't all need my attention at the same time, I spend significantly more time, particularly with the youngest, because they were hit hardest by me being a single parent. And they weren't the one that was always with me when I would go off to work because they had a greater demand. So that made the day longer, more expensive, and harder to do. Because I'd have to keep stopping. They would need to pee and whatnot. And that translated to them not peeing when they're with me now, unless I force them to go pee. Because me, even though I said, it's okay, I'm just frustrated because I'd rather be at home playing with you instead of out on the road working and not being able to put all of my attention on you. Because I had just peed 20 minutes before and now they have to pee, even though they didn't have to then. That's why. And when you're out on the road in a rural area, you have to turn around and find where the bathroom is. And if I just come from the only bathroom and there was no closer bathroom ahead of me, I'd have to backtrack. Cost time, cost money and gas, all of that. It was never their fault. Never their fault. But that was the situation where I couldn't afford babysitters at that point. And though the kids had been in daycare previously, that was when I was married. And we had 2 incomes going in together. And my income typically covered whatever expense daycare was. So you're not happy, but you have happy moments. And you work like hell to create happy moments with your kids. Women have been dealing with this since the fucking beginning. This is not new, people. This is not new. Do we have a different structure now? Yes, because we have more of a rejection of toxic family situations. I spent 1 year with my parents, and no, they disrespected me in ways that they never did my mother's parents, who spent a lot of time with us kids, who watched us, and had a lot of interaction. My mother would never allow my grandmother to treat her like this. And in fact, when my grandmother tried to, that's what put a wedge in between my mom and my grandmother. So I eliminated that assistance, one, because my parents were in Montana and I was back in Tennessee, and I refused to stay where they were at because there wasn't any work, and the town was heading it back into a bust, as an old oil town. And even moving to a bigger city, I wasn't willing to be there. It didn't feel like the right place. So, and the same with my sister. Again, disrespecting my parenting, disrespecting what boundaries I had around how she interacted with my kids, what was appropriate, what speech was not appropriate, and we established that she was not an emotionally safe person. She was constantly misgendering the youngest. No, I'm sorry. Thinking, oh, well, the youngest doesn't care. The youngest just isn't going to fucking fight her on it. The youngest could already tell from the arguments my sister and I were having that it was just not going to. It was a situation, and he fucking dealt with it. And that was absolutely amazing because I didn't ask him to do that. I would have figured it the fuck out if I needed to. But it was a period of time that established what that was. We are more separated in many ways. This is very, very true. I think it's because there's a rejection of dealing with a toxic community just because you have to. That is became one of my deepest regrets, was dealing with my sister when there could have been another solution. And maybe that was to go ahead and move. Maybe that was to go ahead and figure it out. But I think at that time, the timing and the surgery that I needed precluded, and the situation with the car precluded that hanging there was more important, that the timing needed to be what it actually turned out to be. But if there is any other way, I would have already not been there that long. It would have been a shorter period of time. But we understand now, more so than we ever did, that the environment you put your kids into is incredibly important. Even a minimal exposure can hurt them for the rest of their lives. That is now the thing that they have to heal from. So we're more careful about that, because the community, the village, may not be a good fucking village. And other people are like, yeah, but, don't worry about that. That's not the point. Yeah, it is the point. The major things that are happening in our country today and across the world is a direct shifting from extremely old, antiquated means of thinking, of patriarchal, of, having actions and words and jobs defined, whether you're a man or a woman. So defining gender in things that you do instead of, who you are, or potentially biology. And we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, because it's definitely a more nuanced topic. But we're shifting the way we think things, where men get to actually have emotions and express them, and women are going, you're going to express yourself appropriately. Women are more educated. They're excelling in the education field. They're moving into areas and spaces and places that typically have been held by men. No, women don't necessarily want to do all the things that men do, and men don't want to do all the things that women do. But there are jobs that it doesn't fucking matter what your gender is. It matters how compassionate and observant and intelligent you are, emotionally intelligent, as well as, technically intelligent for the work that you are doing. We need more men to be teachers. I had several male teachers when I was a kid. Didn't have any issues with any of them. They were all really good teachers. My brother had a teacher that was a really shitty person. Maybe he was a nice guy in some ways, but really as a teacher, he was close to retirement and checking out anyways, and he did no favors to his students. But we need more men back in teaching. I love that there's male nurses because that's okay. We need to change how we handle our prisoners, how we handle these deportations. The demand for higher emotional intelligence is the new thing. That people who don't want to have to do the self-work or don't want to have to consider somebody else's perspective in order for their own perception to shift, pushing the reach for violence as a last resort, if at all even looked at, in favor of other better solutions. And that is part and parcel to how women are being treated, how mothers are being perceived. My dad fully expected me somehow, even though I'm gay and I'd come out as gay, not bisexual, but gay, thought that I would somehow be able to snag me a somewhat wealthy rancher and be okay. And I think that was a big part of his disappointment, was that I didn't remarry. And I'm like, no, thank you. I am gay. And I've been hurt majorly in this relationship, and I'm still going to go and have another gay relationship, which I did. But that doesn't make me less of a mom, and it doesn't make me less of a good mom because I chose not to hook up with somebody for the benefit of my kids. And there are people who do that. There are people who are like, listen, I don't want any of this other bullshit. I just want somebody to help me parent, or I want somebody to help me pay the bills. You're going to get the kind of relationship you're going to get when you come at it from that perspective. That's because there's a lot of fucking pressure. And the answer isn't to get into whatever relationship you can get into and make it last for as long as possible while you're even more miserable. Let me tell you, being single, I'm immediately happier than I was in my marriage, although I was relatively happy there, than I was in the relationship following my marriage. Though I had very happy moments in that one, there was a lot of heartbreak in there because we just weren't the match that I thought we were, and she knew but didn't bother to fucking, express. And the second relationship, where she's had too much shit she needed to take care of, and she was not healthy enough to be in a relationship. And instead of listening to those red flags early on, I tried to give benefit of the doubt and support. All it did was make me more unhappy, which made me actually a worse parent. Because I was distracted. There was other emotions going on. I was more irritable. There were other things happening there that didn't allow me to expend the energy to, one, heal the broken parts that were there in my heart, as well as to restructure how I was doing work so I could spend more time with the kids. And it ultimately, it felt worse the whole time than it felt good, because I was trying to reach for something that I thought I was supposed to be in, when it's just, open to the possibility of it, in no rush. But, this for me as a parent is what is working for us. And you're going to have to work into what we're doing. I'm not going to rearrange what we're doing to work you into it. especially if they don't have kids of their own. Or if they do, we're going to have to figure out how these systems are going to match up. But you have to have somebody who's willing to do that as a parent. There's so much expectation put on other people. There's a pushback of men about women with children, thinking that women just want somebody, predominant number of women just want somebody to pay for the expense of having kids, when all women want is just to have a good freaking partner. Just like all what men want ultimately is to have a really good partner, someone they enjoy and love to spend time with, not someone whom they have to make time for while they go out golfing with the boys on the weekends, or while they go and, have that night out, that boys' night out that they demand, a few times a month, or, their house filled with their bros watching the football game. Hey, babe, I'm right here. We can talk. Oh, the football game is on. Commercial's done. Gotta go back in. That's not prioritizing the person in your life. That is creating drama and neglect and issues. Women are already in a situation where it's hard to be on an even keel. Because raising children, when there are so many other things to do, and we've been doing it distracted forever. We've had to find food. We've had to make the food, depending on the culture. We've had to deal with the clothes. We've had to deal with the shelter. We've had to deal with planting things if in our culture women do all the planting and harvesting of a home garden, or help with the harvest of a major farm, or the animals on that farm. There is so much that we have occupied within our day. It used to take 2 days to do a week's full of laundry. 2 days to do a week's full of laundry. 2 days. Washing it, soaking it, not to mention when we were making our own clothes, coloring the clothes, dyeing the clothes, that was a process. You didn't just buy it dyed. Families often did their own dyeing, or the women of the village would come together and do a mass amount of dyeing so that everything could be done at once. Maybe the materials were purchased, money was put into the puka forever, whatever. We have always been in support of each other. So why are we not supporting each other's decisions around parenting? Very judgy. Like, Rose goes on to talk about how she was being judged when she had a 4th child. And I'm like, that's weird. Why? I know a lot of people who have 3 and 4 children. I know a lot of people who have 1 child. I know a lot of people who have 2 children. And the people who have 1 children look at me with 3 children and would go, I don't understand how you do it. And I'm like, well, if you're doing it for the one, you just, do a little bit more and it winds up taking care of all 3. But you get pulled in more directions. It is not the super happiest time. But I swear the happy moments are deeply satisfying, deeply worthwhile, and are what make it the joy. Had opened up pictures to put into folders for work from what I did yesterday. And for some reason, the configuration of my photos was in years, and it was starting way back at the earliest years that I've got on the system. So it was a year, I think my youngest was born. Actually, it's when I bought a Mac. So everything that's in the cloud is there. And majority of our family pictures, because I scanned a lot and saved it in to the Apple thing. So I've got all of these pictures of them when they were little. And there's nothing but pleasure and nostalgia and love for that. I don't have to be happy every moment to have those moments, to love and revel in those moments, to remember in that picture 5 minutes before he was being a little shit. And that's why I took a picture of him laying there crying, because he was in a timeout and he was told to stay right there, and that's how he chose to stay, and that's how I allowed him to stay so we could complete the timeout and move on with our day. And like the picture where shortly thereafter he moved from being in timeout there to 2 years later he was still being put in timeouts, but this time he was in the corner at Cracker Barrel, because we had that table that's right by the kitchen, little round table that they put there, that you see in every Cracker Barrel. Or how every child got to experience sitting on their dad's lap, drinking a bottle, hanging out, or falling asleep while he sat there playing games or doing whatever on the computer. Those are extremely happy moments. Those are the part that make it worthwhile. And successful kids, whatever that looks like for them, loving, good people. We're not having children to increase the population. We're having children because it's a natural effect of being an animal. And because we have amazing loving experiences with it. I'm not having children so I have somebody to take care of me when I'm old. Though that happens in our particular animal society. That is a benefit and uniqueness of having grandmothers, is that grandmothers get to take care of kids too, and so moms get to have a little bit of a break. But most often, moms don't. Acknowledging the misery that comes with parenting and parenthood, not just motherhood, fatherhood too, but as a single parent, as a married person, there's a lot of stuff. You are tired and exhausted, and you don't feel like you have enough time for yourself, and that you're being pulled in 10,000 different directions. There's nothing negative about this. And I think the people who find it offensive are the ones who feel very guilty for feeling that tremendous amount of misery and disappointment. They have self-disgust. I would tell you, if you feel that way, don't. It is full of lovely, lovely moments in between absolutely fucking disgusting, terrible moments. Nobody likes being puked on or shit on or thrown up on. Like baby puke, and then there's the throw up. Or when you sit down, they're finally in bed. They won't fucking stand. There's nothing wrong with being angry about it. There's nothing wrong with the frustration. There's nothing wrong with commiserating in the misery of it. There's nothing wrong with that, because it is a shared experience. It's a bonding part between mothers. And yeah, it's a lesson to people who don't have kids yet. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're in your 20s, because I was 25 when I had my first one, or in your fucking 30s. It's the same goddamn thing. When you're in your 40s or 50s, you have far more patience to a large extent. There's an aspect where you're not rushing in life in general, and you're very steady. I've seen that a lot. But you still will have moments where you are just questioning your sanity. Who the hell signs up for this shit? Well, every mother, everybody who chooses to have a baby, to keep a baby, signs up for it. It's part and parcel. And yes, regardless of what they turn out with as adults, because there's a point where it stops being truly your fault, and it's all on them and their actions and their decisions as teenagers and adults, it is always worth it. Unfortunately, there are those who get forced into it who knew they shouldn't have had children, and that's where it's not worth it for them. But it is not an expectation. The new world, the new way of living, it is not expected for you to bear children if you do not want to. And our technology is such that we can safely do it when we're older, and that is okay. We live well into our 80s and 90s. That is the future we want. It's the one where we have absolute choice over our bodies and when we get to conceive. When we get to carry the baby to full term, as much as our bodies allow for that. and technology will be able to protect against any miscarriages and whatnot. But it's not something to cancel, the fucking truth of it. Chappell said no lies in that video whatsoever. Everybody else just needs to get over themselves. And if you want a life where you get to have choice as a woman, maybe in the Straits then.